This evening routine is rewiring seniors' brains for better memory. Margaret stared at the grocery list in her hand, reading it for the third time. Milk, eggs, bread. 3 simple items. But by the time she reached the dairy section, she couldn't remember what else she needed. Standing there in the fluorescent-lit aisle, she felt that familiar wave of frustration wash over her. This wasn't the first time. In fact, it was happening more and more often. At 68, Margaret had always prided herself on her sharp mind. She was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who could recite phone numbers from memory, who never missed an appointment. But lately, words would disappear mid-sentence. Names of people she'd known for decades would slip away, and worst of all, she'd find herself standing in rooms, completely forgetting why she'd walked in there in the first place. Sound familiar? If you're over 60, you've probably experienced these moments yourself. Maybe you've brushed them off as normal aging, or perhaps they've started to worry you more than you'd like to admit. But here's what Margaret discovered, and what I'm about to share with you today. There's a simple evening routine that can actually rewire your brain for better memory, sharper thinking, and clearer focus. This isn't about expensive supplements or complicated brain training programs. It's about 5 gentle, natural practices that take less than 30 minutes each night. And the science behind why they work is absolutely fascinating. Margaret tried this routine for just 2 weeks, and the changes were remarkable. She stopped forgetting items at the grocery store. Names came back to her easily, and that mental fog that had been clouding her days, it began to lift. But before we dive into exactly what Margaret did each evening, let me ask you something. Have you noticed your memory isn't quite what it used to be? Are there moments when you question whether what you're experiencing is normal or something more concerning? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single one, and your experience might help someone else who's going through the same thing. Now let's talk about what's really happening in your brain after 60 and why this evening routine works so powerfully. As we age, our brains undergo natural changes that affect memory and cognitive function. But here's what most people don't understand. Your brain isn't just passively declining, it's actually working harder than ever to maintain the same level of performance. Scientists call this cognitive reserve, and it's your brain's way of adapting to age-related changes. The problem is, many of the habits we develop as we get older actually work against our brain's natural healing and regeneration processes. We stay up later watching television, we eat dinner heavy and late, we don't give our minds time to process the day's information. And perhaps most importantly, we don't create the right conditions for our brains to clean house while we sleep. You see, during sleep, your brain does something remarkable. It activates what scientists call the glymphatic system, a kind of washing machine for your brain. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through your brain tissue, clearing out toxic proteins and metabolic waste that accumulate during the day. This process is crucial for memory consolidation and cognitive health, but it only works optimally when you create the right conditions. Margaret's evening routine was designed to do exactly that. Each element worked together to prepare her brain for this crucial nighttime repair process, and the results speak for themselves. Let me tell you about the 5 components of this routine and why each one is so important for your brain health. The first component might surprise you. It's not meditation or brain games. It's something much simpler. Margaret began each evening by writing down 3 things that happened during her day. Not just any 3 things, but specific moments that stood out to her. Maybe it was a conversation with a neighbor, a bird she noticed in her garden, or even just the taste of her morning coffee. This practice, known as memory anchoring, does something powerful in your brain. When you actively recall and record experiences, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with those memories. You're essentially telling your brain, this information is important, store it well. No, but there's more to it than that. The act of writing engages multiple areas of your brain simultaneously. Your motor cortex controls the movement of your hand, your language centers process the words, and your memory centers retrieve the information. This multi-area activation creates what neuroscientists call cognitive cross-training. Margaret started with just 5 minutes of writing each evening. She kept a simple notebook by her bedside and would jot down her 3 moments before doing anything else. At first, she worried she wouldn't remember anything worth writing about. But as the days passed, she found herself paying more attention during the day, actively noticing and encoding experiences because she knew she'd be recording them later. This heightened awareness during the day is actually one of the most powerful benefits of this practice. When you know you'll be reflecting on your experiences later, you naturally become more present and engaged in the moment. And presence, it turns out, is one of the most important factors in memory formation. The second component of Margaret's routine involves something that might be sitting in your kitchen right now: green tea. But not just any green tea, and not consumed in the usual way. Margaret discovered that drinking a warm cup of green tea 90 minutes before bed created the perfect conditions for memory consolidation. Green tea contains a compound called L-theanine, which has a unique effect on brain chemistry. Unlike caffeine, which can interfere with sleep, L-theanine actually promotes relaxation while maintaining alertness. It increases alpha brain waves, the same pattern associated with meditation and deep focus. This creates what researchers call relaxed awareness, an ideal state for memory processing. But the timing is crucial. Drinking green tea too close to bedtime can interfere with sleep due to its mild caffeine content. Too early, and the benefits wear off before your brain enters its crucial repair phase. Margaret found that 90 minutes before bed was the sweet spot. She would prepare her tea mindfully, taking time to notice the aroma as it steeped, the warmth of the cup in her hands, the subtle flavors as she sipped. This mindful consumption amplified the cognitive benefits by engaging her sensory memory and creating a calming ritual that signaled to her brain that it was time to begin winding down. The third component is where things get really interesting. Margaret discovered that certain scents could actually enhance memory formation and recall. She began using lavender essential oil in a very specific way each evening. About an hour before bed, she would place a drop of lavender oil on her wrists and take 3 deep breaths. The scent would travel through her olfactory system directly to her hippocampus, the brain's memory center. This direct pathway bypasses the usual processing centers and creates an immediate neurochemical response. But Margaret didn't just smell lavender randomly. She used it strategically while doing a specific memory exercise. She would review the day's events in her mind, starting from the moment she woke up and moving chronologically through each experience. As she did this mental review, the lavender scent became associated with memory recall. This technique, called scent-cued memory enhancement, leverages the powerful connection between smell and memory. The olfactory system is directly connected to the limbic system, which processes emotions and memories. By creating a scent memory association, Margaret was essentially giving her brain a chemical cue that it was time to strengthen and consolidate the day's experiences. After 2 weeks of this practice, something remarkable happened. Margaret began to notice that just the scent of lavender, even during the day, would trigger clearer recall of recent events. She had essentially trained her brain to respond to the scent cue by enhancing memory function. The fourth component involves gentle movement, but not in the way you might expect. Margaret didn't start doing jumping jacks or push-ups before bed. Instead, she discovered the power of what researchers call cognitive movement patterns. Every evening, she would spend 10 minutes doing slow, intentional movements while focusing on specific memory tasks. She might walk slowly around her living room while mentally reciting the alphabet backwards. Or she might do gentle arm circles while trying to remember all the people she'd interacted with that day. This combination of physical movement and mental challenge activates multiple brain networks simultaneously. The motor cortex controls movement, the prefrontal cortex manages the cognitive task, and the hippocampus processes the memory component. This multi-network activation creates what scientists call cognitive plasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections. But the movements had to be gentle and repetitive. Intense exercise too close to bedtime can actually interfere with sleep quality. Margaret's movements were more like a moving meditation, rhythmic and calming, while still engaging her brain in complex tasks. The beauty of this practice is that it can be adapted to any mobility level. Someone who uses a wheelchair might do gentle arm movements while working on memory tasks. Someone with limited mobility might simply shift their weight from foot to foot while mentally organizing their thoughts. The key is the combination of movement and memory work, not the intensity of the physical activity. Finally, the fifth component ties everything together. Margaret ended each evening with what she called her gratitude inventory. But this wasn't just a simple list of things she was thankful for. It was a structured cognitive exercise that engaged multiple memory systems simultaneously. She would identify 3 specific people who had impacted her day, no matter how small the interaction. Then she would recall one specific detail about each person: the cashier at the grocery store who had mentioned her garden, the neighbor who had waved from across the street, the postal worker who had delivered her mail with a smile. This practice exercises what psychologists call social memory, our ability to remember details about people and relationships. Social memory is one of the most important cognitive functions for maintaining independence and quality of life as we age. It's also one of the first to decline when memory problems begin. But Margaret's gratitude inventory went deeper than just remembering people. She would also recall one sensory detail from each interaction: the sound of the cashier's laugh, the color of her neighbor's garden gloves, the way the postal worker whistled while walking up her driveway. This sensory component engages multiple memory systems simultaneously. Visual memory, auditory memory, and emotional memory all work together to create rich, detailed memories that are more resistant to forgetting. By practicing this each evening, Margaret was essentially doing strength training for her memory systems. The gratitude aspect is crucial too. Positive emotions enhance memory formation and recall. When we feel grateful, our brains release neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which strengthen neural pathways and improve cognitive function. Margaret wasn't just remembering her day. She was encoding it with positive emotions that made the memories more vivid and lasting. After implementing all 5 components of this evening routine, Margaret noticed changes that went far beyond just better memory. Her sleep quality improved dramatically. She fell asleep faster and slept more deeply. Her mood became more stable and positive. She felt more connected to her daily experiences and more engaged with the people around her. But the memory improvements were the most remarkable. Within just 2 weeks, Margaret noticed that she could remember conversations more clearly. She stopped writing extensive grocery lists because she could hold multiple items in her mind while shopping. Names and faces came back to her more easily, and those frustrating moments of walking into a room and forgetting why, they became rare occurrences rather than daily struggles. The science behind why this routine works is fascinating. Each component targets a different aspect of memory formation and consolidation. The writing exercises strengthen encoding, the process of initially forming memories. The green tea optimizes brain chemistry for memory processing. The lavender creates scent memory associations that enhance recall. The gentle movement builds cognitive plasticity, and the gratitude inventory exercises multiple memory systems simultaneously. But perhaps most importantly, the routine creates what researchers call cognitive coherence. Instead of your brain randomly processing the day's events while you sleep, you've given it a structured framework for organizing and storing information. You've essentially created a filing system for your memories, making them easier to store and retrieve. Let me share another story that illustrates just how powerful this routine can be. Frank, a 74-year-old retired teacher, had been struggling with what he called word-finding problems. He would know exactly what he wanted to say, but the specific word would hover just out of reach. It was frustrating and embarrassing, especially in social situations. Frank's doctor had told him this was normal age-related cognitive decline, but Frank wasn't ready to accept that. He tried Margaret's evening routine with some modifications that worked better for his lifestyle. Instead of writing, he would speak his 3 daily memories into a small recorder, replaying them while sipping his green tea. He used peppermint oil instead of lavender, finding that it worked better for his preferences. His movement practice involved slow stretches while reciting poetry he'd memorized years ago. Within 3 weeks, Frank noticed that words were coming to him more easily. His wife commented that he seemed sharper during conversations. Most importantly, Frank felt more confident in social situations, knowing that his mental acuity was actually improving rather than declining. The key insight from both Margaret's and Frank's experiences is that this routine isn't one size fits all. The 5 components can be adapted to fit your preferences, physical abilities, and lifestyle. The important thing is consistency and the understanding that you're not just doing random activities, you're systematically training your brain to optimize memory formation and recall. Now, you might be wondering about the specific timing of this routine. Margaret found that starting about 2 hours before bedtime worked best for her. This gave her enough time to complete all 5 components without feeling rushed, while still allowing her brain to enter the ideal state for sleep and memory consolidation. The writing component came first, while her mind was still relatively alert. This was followed by the green tea, which she would sip while doing her scent memory work with lavender. The gentle movement came next, giving her body a chance to release any remaining tension from the day. Finally, the gratitude inventory served as a calming conclusion that left her feeling positive and ready for sleep. But timing isn't just about the sequence of activities. It's also about creating a consistent sleep schedule that supports your brain's natural rhythms. Margaret began going to bed at the same time each night, even on weekends. This consistency helped regulate her circadian rhythm, optimizing the brain's nighttime repair processes. She also made sure her bedroom was conducive to quality sleep, cool, dark and quiet, with comfortable bedding and minimal distractions. These environmental factors are crucial because they determine how effectively your brain can carry out its memory consolidation work while you sleep. The room temperature is particularly important. Research shows that a slightly cool environment, around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, promotes deeper sleep and more effective memory processing. Margaret found that adjusting her thermostat and using breathable bedding made a noticeable difference in how refreshed she felt each morning. One of the most common questions people have about this routine is how long it takes to see results. Margaret noticed some improvements within the first week, but the most significant changes came after 2 to 3 weeks of consistent practice. This timeline makes sense from a neurological perspective. Your brain needs time to form new neural pathways and strengthen existing ones. The first week of practice might feel awkward or forced. Your brain is learning new patterns and deciding whether these new habits are worth maintaining. By the second week, the routine begins to feel more natural, and you might start noticing subtle improvements in memory and cognitive function. The third week is often when people experience the most dramatic changes. Your brain has had time to adapt to the new routine, and the cumulative effects of improved sleep, enhanced memory consolidation, and increased cognitive engagement begin to compound. This is when many people report feeling like their old sharp self again. But it's important to understand that improvement isn't always linear. Some days you might feel mentally sharper than others. Some memories might come back more easily, while others remain elusive. This is normal and expected. The key is to maintain consistency with the routine, even when you don't immediately see dramatic results. Margaret experienced this variation in her own journey. Some mornings she would wake up feeling incredibly clear and mentally agile. Other days she might struggle to remember where she put her keys the night before. But over time, the good days began to outnumber the challenging ones, and even the difficult days weren't as frustrating as they had been before she started the routine. It's also worth noting that this routine isn't just about memory. Many people report improvements in other cognitive functions as well. Problem-solving abilities often improve, decision-making becomes clearer, focus and attention span typically increase. These broader cognitive benefits make sense because the routine exercises multiple brain systems simultaneously. Margaret found that her ability to multitask improved significantly. She could carry on a conversation while preparing dinner without losing track of either activity. She could read a book while soft music played in the background without getting distracted. These might seem like small improvements, but they made a big difference in her daily life and confidence. The social benefits are equally important. When your memory is sharp and reliable, you feel more confident in social situations. You're more likely to engage in conversations, participate in activities, and maintain relationships. Margaret found herself accepting more social invitations and feeling more comfortable in group settings. She also discovered that her improved memory made her a better listener. When someone shared a story or concern with her, she could remember the details later and follow up appropriately. This strengthened her relationships and made her feel more connected to the people in her life. But perhaps the most profound benefit was the sense of agency and control Margaret regained. Instead of feeling like a passive victim of cognitive decline, she felt empowered to actively improve her brain health. This shift in mindset is crucial for successful aging and maintaining independence. The routine also helped Margaret develop a better relationship with her own mind. Instead of fearing memory lapses or getting frustrated with cognitive changes, she began to view her brain as a partner in the process of maintaining mental sharpness. She learned to work with her brain's natural rhythms and capabilities rather than against them. This collaborative approach to brain health is one of the most important aspects of the routine. You're not fighting against aging or trying to turn back the clock. You're optimizing your brain's natural processes and giving it the best possible conditions to function at its peak capacity. Now, let me address some common concerns and questions that people have about implementing this routine. The first concern is usually time. People worry that adding another 30 minutes to their evening routine will be burdensome or unsustainable. But Margaret found that the routine actually saved her time in the long run. When your memory is sharp and reliable, you spend less time searching for misplaced items, retracing your steps, or trying to remember important information. You make fewer trips to the store because you remember what you need. You waste less time on tasks that require mental clarity because your thinking is more efficient. Margaret calculated that the 30 minutes she spent each evening on her routine saved her at least an hour each day in increased efficiency and reduced frustration. From a time management perspective, it was one of the best investments she could make. Another concern is cost. People assume that brain health interventions must be expensive or require special equipment. But Margaret's routine cost virtually nothing. A notebook and pen for writing. Green tea, which most people already have or can buy inexpensively. A small bottle of essential oil that lasts for months. No special equipment needed for the gentle movement. And the gratitude inventory requires nothing but mental attention. Compare this to the cost of memory supplements, brain training programs, or other cognitive interventions, and the routine becomes incredibly cost-effective. It's also more sustainable because you're not dependent on purchasing ongoing supplies or maintaining expensive subscriptions. Some people worry about the complexity of the routine. 5 different components might seem overwhelming at first. But Margaret found that the routine became second nature within a few weeks. The key is to start gradually and build the habit slowly. You might begin with just 1 or 2 components and add others as you become comfortable. For example, you could start with the writing exercise and green tea, then add the scent work after a week, followed by the movement component, and finally, the gratitude inventory. This gradual approach prevents overwhelm and increases the likelihood of long-term success. The routine is also highly adaptable. If you don't like green tea, you could substitute herbal tea or even warm milk. If lavender doesn't appeal to you, other scents like rosemary or peppermint can be effective. The gentle movement can be modified for any physical ability level. The writing can be done digitally if handwriting is difficult. The core principles remain the same regardless of how you adapt the specific practices. You're creating a structured evening routine that prepares your brain for optimal memory consolidation during sleep. You're engaging multiple cognitive systems simultaneously. You're developing positive associations with memory and learning. And you're creating consistent conditions that support brain health. Margaret's story isn't unique. Thousands of people over 60 have discovered that their memory problems aren't inevitable consequences of aging. They're often the result of suboptimal conditions for brain health. By creating better conditions through simple, consistent practices, remarkable improvements become possible. The routine also has cumulative benefits that extend beyond immediate memory improvements. Regular practice of these techniques appears to build what researchers call cognitive reserve. This is your brain's ability to maintain function despite age-related changes. The more cognitive reserve you have, the better your brain can adapt to challenges and maintain sharp thinking throughout your life. Building cognitive reserve is like building physical fitness. The more you exercise your brain with challenging, varied activities, the stronger and more resilient it becomes. Margaret's routine provides exactly this kind of comprehensive brain exercise, targeting different cognitive systems and creating the conditions for optimal brain health. The social aspects of improved memory shouldn't be underestimated either. When you can remember names, faces, and details about people's lives, your relationships become richer and more meaningful. Margaret found that her friendships deepened because she could remember and follow up on things people had shared with her. This created a positive feedback loop where better memory led to stronger relationships, which in turn motivated her to continue the practices that supported her cognitive health. The routine also helped Margaret develop better emotional regulation. When you're not constantly worried about forgetting things or struggling with memory lapses, you experience less stress and anxiety. This emotional stability actually supports better cognitive function, creating another positive feedback loop. Many people report that the routine becomes something they look forward to each evening. Rather than being a chore, it becomes a cherished time for reflection, relaxation, and self-care. Margaret described it as a gift I give to myself each night. This positive association with the routine makes it more sustainable and enjoyable. The key to success with this routine is patience and consistency. Your brain needs time to adapt to new patterns and strengthen neural pathways. Some people see dramatic improvements within weeks, while others might need a month or more to notice significant changes. The important thing is to maintain the practices consistently, even when progress seems slow. Margaret's experience taught her that brain health is not a destination, but a journey. The routine isn't something you do for a few weeks and then abandon. It's a sustainable lifestyle practice that continues to pay dividends over time. The longer you maintain the routine, the more benefits you're likely to experience. It's also important to remember that this routine complements rather than replaces other healthy aging practices. Regular physical exercise, social engagement, proper nutrition and medical care all play important roles in maintaining cognitive health. The evening routine, Margaret discovered, is one powerful tool in a comprehensive approach to healthy aging. The routine also helps people develop a growth mindset about aging. Instead of accepting cognitive decline as inevitable, you begin to see your brain as capable of improvement and adaptation throughout your life. This mindset shift can be profoundly empowering and can influence how you approach other aspects of aging and health. Margaret often tells people that discovering this routine was like finding a key she didn't know existed. It unlocked capabilities she thought were lost forever, and gave her confidence that she could actively participate in maintaining her cognitive health. This sense of agency and empowerment is perhaps the most valuable benefit of all. If you're ready to try this routine yourself, remember that small, consistent actions lead to significant changes over time. Start with just 1 or 2 components and build gradually. Pay attention to how your brain responds and adapt the routine to fit your preferences and lifestyle. Most importantly, be patient with yourself and celebrate small improvements along the way. Your brain is remarkably capable of change and improvement at any age. The routine Margaret discovered simply creates the optimal conditions for your brain to do what it naturally wants to do. Form clear memories, think efficiently, and maintain sharp cognitive function. By supporting your brain's natural processes, you can experience improvements in memory, thinking, and overall cognitive health that might surprise you. The journey to better memory and cognitive function begins with a single evening routine. Tonight, you could start with something as simple as writing down 3 things that happened during your day. That small act could be the beginning of a transformation that helps you feel sharp, confident, and mentally agile for years to come. Remember, it's never too late to start taking care of your brain. Margaret was 68 when she discovered this routine, but people in their 70s, 80s, and beyond have reported similar benefits. Your brain's capacity for improvement doesn't have an expiration date. The question isn't whether you're too old to see benefits. The question is, are you ready to give your brain the support it needs to function at its best? If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear about your experience. Have you tried any of these techniques before? What challenges are you facing with memory or cognitive function? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to begin their own journey toward better brain health.